Hi. Thank you. I didn't even get to pay attention. So I can understand Spanish, but I'm very bad at speaking it. So if I stare at you kind of oddly this evening while you're talking, it's because I'm trying to parse it. Um, so that's the secret. If you talk really yeah, yeah. If you talk really quickly, then I'll have no idea. So there you go. Yeah, so I'm Tracy Hinds. I'm the Education Community Manager for the Node Foundation. I've been doing that since March, and prior to that, I was a full-time JavaScript engineer. So here we go. I don't know how many of you have heard of the phrase JIF-a-sniff? JavaScript is fun, and so Node is fun. It used to be something that was said more in the community. I think it's been lost. I think it needs to be brought back. So yeah, Node is 7 years old now, and the foundation just hit its first birthday. We're going to take a look at how Node came to be, how the fork, if you weren't aware of it, was great for us, so you'll find that out, how the Node Foundation, what the heck it is a large collaboration of a number of people trying to grow and maintain the health of the Node project, and how we are all flawed in these efforts, and by recognizing that, we're going to help make things better. I'm going to share how we are improving many parts of the project, even though other communities look at us as a model, which is a little terrifying sometimes, and how every facet of the project has to step up in order for us to make these changes a success. So back when I first started programming, I was enjoying my code community like nothing else. I lived in Portland, Oregon, in the United States, and there was a new meetup every week. People were chomping at the bit for the latest, greatest technology. Node was one of them, and I started, I tried to find a group that was, interested in the things that I was interested in. I tried to offer my support because as a beginner, it helped give me more purpose on the days when I was struggling with my code. So I ended up learning Python and attending a lot of the Python meetups. And I emailed and I messaged the organizers because I'd been attending a lot of the meetups and felt like there were things that I had strengths in that I could help with. So I didn't get a response. I got a lot of cold stares when I asked even in person. And even after sharing how excited I was, and I'd been recommended to do so by my mentor, they still turned me down. So, it took me insisting on their needing to be a familiar face at the weekly hack time in order for them to allow me to help. So I had to point out the number of problems, offer multiple solutions, and finally convince them. I think I just worn them down. So I was there pretty much every weekend except for the weekends I was attending conferences. But then I attended the first PDX Node meetup. Two fellas, Merlin Albersfire and Ben Acker, had announced the event to be hosted at Walmart Labs. And a lot of people were really excited, and I went. At that time, there weren't large groups attending meetups because there were so many meetups. So it was even fatigue back then. I had just started writing JavaScript full-time. I was asked to switch over from Python. And my mentor was really excited for me to get to see a local group doing what I was going to be learning. So I was like, great, okay, I'm going to be writing JavaScript every day. I would love to Node more. And the energy was incredible at the event. And the attendees and the organizers were really friendly, really inviting. And as I do, I followed up with the organizers after about how many great things we had to look forward to as a group, just sheer excitement. And Ben Acker, the organizer, asked if I'd be interested in helping organize, which floored me. It was literally the first time I had met him. And the first thought, of course, was like, you actually want me to help. And at this point, it shouldn't be much of a shock, but it was a shock. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to run with this. And I helped make sure there were speakers. I helped make sure there was a venue. I caught a fire. And I worked up, because of the confidence that gave me, I worked up the courage to speak at Node PDX, which was a conference in Portland, Oregon. And so that was my first conference talk ever. And I also went on to run conferences as a hobby outside of my day job of working as an engineer full-time. And all of this because I had the sense of purpose in both places. And I shared with the attendees all the fun times we were having and how Node is an awesome space to participate in. And all of this was because Ben asked. And, what feels better to a new person somewhere unfamiliar than to feel valued? So, there's nothing better, honestly. There was nothing better. So the power of asking for help and making space or getting out of the way for those who have the energy and enthusiasm to help, I think that's the power of Node and its community. And I think that's a story and a legacy that we need to nurture. So how does Node fit into the larger JavaScript landscape? Node is a platform. It's a set of APIs for JavaScript to do things that JavaScript was never designed to do. Without having to context switch, it can lower the barrier to learning to write full stack. So why should JavaScripters or other language programmers care if they aren't currently writing it? You probably are involved in some way even if you don't want to be. Changes in Node affect all front-end folks who use tooling such as NPM, which at this point is close to 5 million people. And other projects such as WordPress, don't know if you've heard of it, also, at this point running 4.5% of the internet. There are important open source, technological, and community lessons to be learned. We saw an exciting project that a lot of people had invested their work in on the brink of trouble, and a lot of people didn't know this at the time. 2 years ago, Node, a global project, was down to 4 Node core maintainers. This doesn't address all of the incredible work that was happening in the community, keeping the excitement alive and learning Node and consuming it. But we only had 4 maintainers to the core code base. So let's take a look at how this played out and how it was repaired to make Node stronger. There's this idea that our ability or stalled ability to get things done as individuals working towards a larger goal, such as maintaining and improving the Node project, is community capacity. This is our ability to promote or sustain the well-being of the community and its components. Those components include the individuals, informal groups, organizations that are structured around it, social interactions, and the code base itself. So what I'd like to introduce next is the concept of the tyranny of structurelessness. A lack of heavy organization and process early on was pretty integral to the Node code and community events happening. Many declared the lack of structure a way to keep contributors from being bogged down in process and approval. The fallacy here is that a lack of organization and structure does not mean that it's actually structureless. Implicit structure grew from friendships, accidental elitism, and good-intentioned defensiveness to protect the quality of the code base. We couldn't fool ourselves into thinking that Node was going to continue to grow without having some structure in place. We started going heavy by the burden of our own bootbeam project, and development slowed to a crawl. Then a contributor decided to take a path of least resistance with the support of some really motivated peers. That was the fork. Dun, dun, dun. So January 2015, IO.js version 1.0 was released. IO aimed to provide a faster and predictable release cycle. It merged in the latest language API and performance improvements to V8 and updated libuv and other base libraries. And that was important because a lot of that had been stalled for a long time in Node itself. Contributors aimed to continue development of IO under open governance model as opposed to corporate stewardship, which I'll get to shortly. Around this time, Rod Vag, who some people know in the community, Rod had introduced an idea called the open source policy, and that paved the way for a much friendlier model to getting contributions merged and becoming a collaborator in open source projects, particularly in Node. Individuals making significant and valuable contributions were given commit access to a project to contribute as they see fit, which seems like a fairly normal thing, but in large projects like Node, it was pretty unheard of. It's considered pretty dangerous. So February, the very next month, Joyent, the corporate steward of Node, and the owner of the Node IP then, announced the formation of the Node Foundation at Node Summit. That was quick, right? It's only a month. But foundation formation is not a quick process. For anybody who runs a nonprofit, they know that. Joyent had been working with the community through the meeting of an advisory board for many months to try and alleviate the pressure in the community around governance. By March, the foundation bylaw drafts had been circulated, but this was a very interesting mix of companies and community. It took until May for the IO Technical Committee to vote to enter the Node Foundation and merge with Node.js. Is that me? So in June, we saw the official launch of the Node Foundation with founding corporate members followed by the board of directors being established the next month. The first ever Node Collaborator Summit, joining many of the collaborators back from the fork in one place, which was a really awesome event. Small but awesome. So the result of these months of tough conversations, diplomacy, and pull requests was the release of Node version 4.0 in September 2015, the convergence. So what's the point? What's the power of this? It combined the stability of corporate support with the much more in the community technical decisions being made liberally. So they were freed a bit from the process and the elite few who had held on to the commit bit. So in the project now, thanks in very large part to the fork, new contributors account for 50% of all contributors per month. These growing numbers mean we move towards a more mature project. It means being able to have more people contributing to issues filed long ago and features in roadmaps we've only been dreaming of getting accomplished because the contributors we did have prior were stretched very thin. So here we're growing a healthy community capacity. But what is Node now? It's over 1,000 contributors to date. It's 27 corporate members and many more individual members. It's 171 chapters of Node School around the world. It's NodeBots with the countless international NodeBot Day events that happen annually and the meetups popping up globally. It's Node Together, welcoming a more diverse set of beginners to Node in more than 7 international workshops this year. And it's Node To Do, as well as Code and Learn, which have seen over 40 PRs and teaching folks how to contribute to Node Core for the first time. It's the thousands of meetups and conferences happening around the world where people get excited and nerd out on Node. It's the parts of the world that many of us aren't connected to or don't stay up late or get up early enough to collaborate with. So how does all of this work? The Node Foundation exists to increase the adoption of Node and increase participation in the Node project. It's a pretty simple thing. It's like we want more people, but we don't just want more people. It's not that simple. You want more quality people, and you want people excited about what they're doing. So this goal is achieved by maintaining the health of the core Node project. It's fostering and encouraging a healthy Node open source ecosystem. And it's fostering and encouraging a healthy ecosystem of training products and services, meaning nonprofit, for-profit companies, as well as individuals who are helping contribute to this place. So how we do that? This is a very convoluted mapping of what the foundation looks like. The people who operate, including me, inside of the Node Foundation don't really like this visual model, but we're struggling to find a less complicated way to communicate that. And I think that shares, one, that we're a year old, so we're babbies, but that also we're still learning. So the Technical Steering Committee is the first of the groups here that help contribute to the health of the project. They are answerable to the board via a representative for the TSC. I'm going to call the Technical Steering Committee TSC because it's a long phrase. So they're managed by an open source governance process which came across from IO. It is independent of the board. This is very important to remember. So the board can't tell the technical team what to do, and ultimately it is their responsibility to decide what's going to happen there. And that empowers the individuals and the companies that are invested in contributing to the code base by being there, showing up and contributing. It independently manages executing, maintaining the health of the core project. And it shares responsibility with the execs for proposing and managing how we foster and encourage this community. It is good to remember that, again, the technical team alone is responsible for the technical strategy and executing that. They can rely on the other parts of the Node Foundation for advisement. So the board helps in another way, and most of that is through fiduciary responsibility. It's money. So ultimately, their responsibility is for ensuring the health of the project as well through advisement, but also through the expenditure of its funds. So that's managing the money. They also have representation on the board through financial donors, that's member companies, the technical team via a seat for the TSC nominee, and the node user community via elected individual member board seats, and there are 2 currently. We also help to maintain focus on the goal of the foundation, again, to increase the adoption of Node and increase participation. We also delegate all, or I say we, I'm not on the board, I apologize. They delegate all business execution to the executives, which is one of me. And I'll explain that in a second, requiring approval of strategy and budget. We also delegate responsibility for the Node open source ecosystem to the technical team and the executive team, requiring approval for strategy and money. So the executive branch of this whole thing includes myself, Michael Rogers, marketing, PR, and events teams. So we're responsible for making sure that the money spent in accordance with the wishes of the board are spent accordingly. We're also assisted by the Linux Foundation using their shared resources to maximize availability and minimize cost. We are, as part of the executive team, we have the paid staff, which is the community manager, the education community manager, and part-time PR, event, and marketing. We also serve as a resource for the technical team as required, giving context and including the use of foundation funds for technical purposes. So yeah. But the best part is the community. So the community ecosystem helps with all of this. So we rely on the community to contribute, right? They write the packages, they contribute to the code base, demonstrate the new ways to push the boundaries of what Node can do. We teach and learn to create a more vibrant space of Node developers, and we share the battle-hardened lessons that help improve the Node project. All of this is done by adding the parts working together to be greater than the whole. And in order to do that, it means we're all collaborating and need to feel the agency and safety to contribute. We have millions of people in the Node community who are essentially unfamiliar coworkers walking the halls of GitHub that we've had very little, if any, prior interactions with. We are humans, mind you, and can have very different motivations. This can add up to an energy-tense environment that we have to tread thoughtfully with care and respect. We as community members drive the values forward of the Node project through the ways we interact in person and online. We're a global community with colliding cultures and belief systems. Ultimately, we're interacting because we're all trying to get our jobs or passions accomplished. It's that simple, but none of that is easy. Be mindful of that the next time you pull up a pull request or a GitHub comment or a tweet. The care you put into your work is very likely the same passion that someone else had for theirs. So why am I explaining all of this? We need help. We need so much help. It benefits all of us, and it's also awesome to get to celebrate where we are so far. So we are very grateful for the work that has occurred so far in the project. And it's not to say that feeling grateful is not, is not to just say that everything is great, because it's not, but it is to say that we're grateful for the blessings that we've had so far. And first is that I get asked a lot about how someone can contribute to Node. There's a lot of documentation online. It's really hard to discover. But first I have to say, well, how do you join the Node GitHub organization, right? There are a number of ways to do that. One way is to fork and supply a pull request, actually put through a fix. Another way is to go through many of the working groups. So what you can do is volunteer your time with a working group, participate, and participation includes conversation. It does not just mean code. It can mean documentation. It can mean showing up. It can be organizing. And all of that, of course, is again that the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee, and the code base itself supports the project, right? So all of us together with the Node Foundation are trying to put this through. And just in case you want to figure out what interests you, we have quite a number of working groups that I think some people are not aware of. So we have a website working group, we have streams, the build group, tracing, which has become extremely popular, at least at conferences, to listen to the talks on. So there's translation with I18N, there's evangelism group, there's roadmaps, there's Docker, There's benchmarking, there's postmortem, there's internationalization and localization, which needs so much help. There's HTTP working group and documentation. There's inclusivity. Education is not a working group, but we still need your help. And we have repos on GitHub as well. And community can mean the difference for maintainership, stabilization, and new innovation. Like so many in open source, I find myself needing help for all the things that we can dream up. We each are doing a lot of work for one person, and there's got to be room to ask for help. So that's how we do this, right? We create the space for others to help and ask. So that user group in Oregon, it's grown a bit. I am no longer there. I'm now based in New York. But those organizers have gone on to work at NPM, New Relic, Node Foundation, and Apple. Many of our attendees were able to finally get jobs writing Node as part of their day jobs. This is one story, and there are so many more. It's been repeated across the world over. I've sat on conference talk panels where every person on it, including myself, had been encouraged early on to participate in the Node community through Node bots, through making lights blink, through making a bot roll. And we ran our first International Node Bots Day PDX with 5 weeks prep, had 75 people attend. We were able to get Arduino kits for everyone and sponsors to boot. We got people excited about hacking hardware with JavaScript at a time where people didn't know that was possible. We ran countless Node schools, talk nights, and hack nights. You know, it could be stressful, but it was always fun. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Ben asking for my help. I wouldn't have this job if someone hadn't given me the space to help. Sometimes I forget who I am, and I'm not someone who's been programming for 10 plus years. I've not been deeply embedded in a coder community since the inception of its language. That doesn't mean there isn't a value in my contributions or you getting started and participating. I will work on these projects because I'm excited for them and think they should exist. I will execute them with care and awareness. And if they falter, it is surely a lesson learned, or many. If they succeed, then we'll all celebrate together. So I look forward to growing the community that was so welcoming to me. I hope that we can provide, or I can provide the same Southern welcome to y'all that Ben afforded me. And it takes a global village to support this community project. Thank you.